Hello book besties, welcome back to my channel. My name's Delaney if you're new here. We are back with another book recommendation video, and this one is really exciting because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite genres of books to recommend. I don't know if it's technically a genre, but kind of like a umbrella of recommendations. We're going to be talking about summer book recommendations, and these are the perfect books to pack up, take to the beach, take in your backyard, sit in the sun, and absolutely binge them in 1 or 2 sittings. They are fast-paced, easy to read, and so much fun. I've been meaning to film this video for so long now, and I've been putting it off because I feel like every time I think of summer book recommendations, I just am flooded with like 1,000,001 books because I'm a romance reader. I typically read a lot of romances, and I feel like standalone romances that are just flirty and fun are the perfect books for the summertime. So I just have like an overwhelming amount of summer book recommendations. But we're finally doing it. I'm sure there will be books that I look back when I'm editing this video and be like, ugh, I should have mentioned that one, but we're just gonna do the best with what we have. There's gonna be a ton of book recommendations in this video, so even if I don't cover them all, hopefully I can at least give a good starting point. I think the best way to separate this is to do it by genre, so I'm gonna start with romance because that is typically what I reach for like a summery read, and then I'm gonna go into series, and then probably general fiction, and then thrillers. Romance, thrillers, and kind of general fiction is typically what I will reach for in the summertime, not usually in a huge like fantasy mood or anything like that. Typically that happens in more of like the winter or fall time, but summertime I just want something quick and fast paced, and typically that's a romance or a thriller. Alright, but like I said, I have a ton of book recommendations that I need to share with you, so let's jump in. I need to grab a lot of them. First, it would be wrong of me to not mention Emily Henry. I have 4 of her books here. These are actually my 4 top books from her. And so we have Happy Place, which is my personal favorite. There's a lot of like found family and friendship in this, but there's also a lot of miscommunication. So if you don't like miscommunication, not the book for you, but I will say this is the one Emily Henry book that I was like, wow, I actually thoroughly enjoyed that. Emily Henry is just kind of like a middle of the road author for me. There's a lot of people that like she's their absolute all-time favorite author. I don't dislike her by any means, but she's definitely not an all-time favorite for me. Happy Place, however, is one of my favorite books. That is kind of a hot take. I feel like people either love this book or hated this book. I personally enjoyed it, and like I said, favorite Emily Henry. Then we have Book Lovers, and this one's fun for the summertime because it's just like a quick and flirty romance in a small town. Both of our main characters are really bookish too. I think we have like an editor and a literary agent or something like that. And they are kind of like workplace rivals slash enemies to lovers. Really fun, really flirty. I like the sister dynamics in this book. I will say I DNF'd this book twice when trying to read the physical copy. It was only when I listened to the audiobook that I got through the whole thing. Once I did, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but reading the physical copy was really slow for me. I was not enjoying it. The audiobook is definitely great if you are struggling to get through this. Highly recommend checking that out. Then we have Beach Read. This is probably her most summery read in my opinion. That and People We Meet on Vacation, which is the one that I don't have with me right now. But this one is also bookish. We have 2 authors. He writes kind of like darker, I believe it's like mysterious fiction or like literary fiction or something. And she writes like fluffy, flirty rom-coms, and they are both facing writer's block, so they decide to like switch and write for each other's genre. Again, workplace rivals slash enemies to lovers, a little bit of small town, super sweet, just all the perfect beachy summer vibes. Then the one I just briefly mentioned, we have People We Meet on Vacation. This is my least favorite, and that's weird to me because it's dual timeline friends to lovers, which I normally go crazy for, but this one just like was really slow and really boring for me. And we had like this big looming conflict, and once we finally got to the conflict and found out why these characters had like this tension and this negative history, I was like really let down. I was like, that's it? Like we couldn't have just talked through that? But it is a pretty quick, just standalone romance read if you're looking for something summery. Then her newest release, Funny Story. This one was really cute. I think this is probably my second favorite Emily Henry after Happy Place. This felt different for me. I don't know. It didn't feel like typical Emily Henry. It just felt different. The vibe was just different, and I liked it. So essentially we have Miles and Daphne. That's their names, right? Yeah, so we have Miles and Daphne, and both of them just got broken up with, and both their significant others were childhood best friends that ended up dating each other, if that makes sense. So Daphne's fiance and Miles' girlfriend were childhood friends, and they decided to leave Daphne and Miles to be together. So then Daphne and Miles end up living together because they need to figure out the roommate situation, since their obviously stand-in roommate just left them. So they end up living together under one apartment, and there's just a lot of flirty, witty banter. That is what I will say about Emily Henry, is she does witty banter really well. All right, and then some more summary standalones. I have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I thoroughly enjoyed this book until we got to the conflict. I just didn't like the trope in this book when we got to the conflict, which was really a big letdown for me. But I will say this book was on track to be a 5-star read for like 80% of it. This is second chance childhood friends to lovers, and it takes place over the summertime. So like the vibes are immaculate. If you've read Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren, you will definitely enjoy this book as well. Really flirty, really quick read. I'm pretty sure I read this in like 2 sittings. It's like just over 300 pages, so you could sit down and totally binge this book. It's easy to follow, it's fun, you'll be rooting for the characters, you'll be captivated and invested. It's just the conflict that didn't set well with me, but overall I still enjoyed this book. Then we have her newest release, This Summer Will Be Different. I actually just read this in a reading vlog, and again, I wasn't like completely wowed by it, but I wasn't expecting it to be the most meaningful or impactful romance ever. It was just like a perfect flirty, fluffy summer romance. This is another dual timeline second chance romance, and this is best friend's brother, but the best friend doesn't know that there's a romance between her best friend and her brother, if that makes sense. I don't know. If you want more of a idea of the plot and my thoughts on this, definitely go watch that vlog, but this one was sweet. I think I ended up giving this 3 stars or 3.5 stars, which is just like typical for a summery rom-com. A great read that again is super bingeable. I think you could read it in like 1 or 2 sittings. Another author you definitely need to check out for the summertime is Christina Lauren. This is their newest release, The Paradise Problem. This is also in that same reading vlog that I was just talking about. This is fake marriage, forced proximity, and a little bit of grumpy sunshine. Like she's super quirky and funny and sunshiny, and he's just a little bit more straight-laced and by the book. I wouldn't say he's necessarily grumpy, but there's definitely tension in how their personalities differ, which was really fun. They, like I said with Emily Henry, have great witty banter. Their books always make me laugh out loud, and this is a great quick summer read if you're looking for one. And I have a few more books by them that I would definitely recommend for the summertime. Honestly, any Christina Lauren I think would be great for the summertime. I always read their books in the summer. They are just so quick, and also the audiobooks of their books are typically really good too. So first, The Unhoneymooners. This is again grumpy sunshine, opposites attract, forced proximity, and fake marriage. So we basically have the best man and the maid of honor in a wedding are gifted the bride and groom's honeymoon because everyone in the wedding, including the bride and groom, gets really bad food poisoning. The best man and the maid of honor didn't have the food that caused the food poisoning, so they're the only ones that don't get super sick. So they're gifted the bride and groom's honeymoon, so they have to go away together and pretend that they're a newlywed couple, but they don't like each other. Lots of tension, lots of angst, lots of fun banter in this one. I think it's just a perfect summer read because of like the tropical setting. Then I would recommend Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. This is another friends to lovers dating other people trope, and this one is just flirty and fun. I don't see this talked about nearly enough. And like I said, Christina Lauren, you just can't go wrong with any of their books for the summertime. I don't really have a ton to say about this one, just that it's quick and bingeable and just a really easy flirty romance. Also, The Soulmate Equation. This one's fun because we have a man who's like a scientist, and basically he creates like a dating app that uses people's DNA to like connect them to their soulmate, like match characteristics and connect people to their soulmate. And he ends up matching with like a 98% or something, which is like absolutely unheard of, with a girl or female main character, and they just like do not get along. I'm trying to remember the specifics of how they figured this out. Why do I not remember? Anyways, they end up fake dating for the marketing of this, and they're like, we are definitely not soulmates, like we actually hate each other, but we're gonna fake date because we need your soulmate equation app and everything to like launch and be successful. And with a 98% match rate, like we have to pretend like we are actually soulmates. So obviously fake dating with this one, it brings into account like the question of soulmates. This one was just, again, flirty and funny and quirky. This one actually had me laughing out loud on multiple occasions. Really a fun book, one of my favorites by them. Then another I would recommend is The Half Night Stand. I don't remember a ton of specifics about this. I think I read this 2 summers ago, and I listened to the audiobook. I remember that, but I do remember thoroughly enjoying it. So read the blurb for this one. I don't own the physical copy, so I can't read you the blurb. I just remember really liking it, and I wanted to include it because I thought it was flirty and fun when I read it, but that goes to show my memory and like my reading retention. Once I read a book, it's a goner. As I said though, any Christina Lauren book I think would be perfect for a summer book recommendation. Those are just some of my personal faves. Then another author I recommend checking out for the summertime is Katherine Center. Here I have The Rom-Commers, which is her newest release. I actually got an arc of this. It's not out until June, so hopefully it'll be out when you're seeing this, but this book was really, really fun. We have screenwriters, so we have kind of like that Hollywood trope and also forced proximity, workplace rivals, and what was I gonna say? Grumpy Sunshine, also Grumpy Sunshine. So this book was really fun, really flirty. Katherine Center does such a fun job of balancing like wit and flirty banter while also having really deep stories, and this one was emotional but also really hilarious. So definitely a book that will have you feeling all the feels. Then we have The Bodyguard. This is my favorite romance by Katherine Center. I think she writes a lot of books that can be read more as like women's fiction with romance subplot. This one I think is like the heaviest on romance, this and The Rom-Commers. This one is obviously the bodyguard trope, forced proximity, fake dating, and small town. And also One of Us is Famous. And this one's unique because she is actually the bodyguard for him, which I thought was a really fun role reversal from what we typically see with the bodyguard trope. Side note, if you read this one first, you'll recognize our male main character shows up in this one, which was really fun. I love all Katherine Center books. I have read almost all of them. I have one left to read, and truly you can't go wrong with any of them. They are so fast paced, they're quick and easy reads, and just have like the perfect vibes. You can read them in like one sitting, and they will make you laugh, they will make you cry, they will make you feel all the feelings, and they're great. They're really great. Then another standalone I would recommend is The Best of Me by Nicholas Sparks. If you have seen the movie and didn't like the movie, give the book a shot, because I think the movie kind of butchered this, to be totally honest with you. I am so sorry if you're a fan of the movie, but the book is just so much better. I read this book in high school, and I was not a reader in high school. Like, I only did assigned reading, if that. Cliff note, like, I was not about reading because I had so much assigned reading. This book I picked up and I read it. I think I stayed up until like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and I had school the next day, and I finished this book because I absolutely could not stop reading it. This is another second chance. I think it's dual timeline as well, romance, and one of my favorite Nicholas Sparks books. I also recommend checking out Sarah Adams' books, and specifically When in Rome. This is my favorite one by her. I read Practice Makes Perfect, which is the second book in this like interconnected standalone series. I did not like that one nearly as much. When in Rome though, I thought was really cute. Small town, grumpy sunshine, found family. The vibes were just there for a summer romance, and I thought this one was really flirty and really fun. Also, if you're not a fan of spice, I recommend checking Sarah Adams out because her books are typically very closed door with like very little or no spice. While we're talking about no spice, I recommend checking out The Summer of Broken Rules. This one also had no spice, and this one was fun because it takes place obviously over the summertime, and it's like it gives like family reunion vibes with like so much found family, so many friends. There's just so many fun, quirky characters and so many family dynamics that I thought really added to the story. This is just a fun read. Like, that's really the best way to put it. If you're looking for something super deep and meaningful, probably this isn't going to do it for you, but if you want something just fun, this book was a lot of fun. Who is talking to me? Why is there motion at my front door? There's literally not. Probably a bug. Okay, I think those are most of the standalone romances that I wanted to talk about, and now I want to jump into series. So first, I would highly recommend checking out Abby Jimenez. This is technically a series, but they can also be read as standalones. However, I would say I highly recommend reading them as they are intended to be as a series. So this is her Part of Your World series. So we start with Part of Your World, which is really fun. This is Alexis and Daniel, I believe. Yes, I'm so bad at remembering main characters' names, but this is Alexis and Daniel. Small town romance, again, kind of grumpy sunshine, opposites attract trope. She's like a big city girl, I believe, and he's like a carpenter, small town. I'm pretty sure he has like a goat or something. Yeah, her ultra wealthy parents want her to carry on the family legacy of world-renowned surgeons. Alexis doesn't need the glory or the fame. Every moment she spends with Daniel in the tight-knit town where he lives, she's discovering just what's really important. So I love the small town elements in this book. It was a great way to start off the series. Then we go into one of my favorite romance books of all time, yours truly. This is Jacob and Brianna, and I am in love with Jacob. He is like such a golden retriever boy and the most amazing anxiety representation I've ever seen done in a book. I just found him so relatable. This book had me crying because I just felt so seen by how anxiety was portrayed in this book. It was just truly phenomenal. I adore this book. Then her newest release, Just for the Summer. This one was phenomenal. I cannot think of a better way to wrap up this series and tie it up with a neat little bow. Because of this book, this is why I recommend reading it in order so strongly, because the ending of this book will make so much more sense and hit just so much harder if you know the characters from the first two books. So highly recommend reading this as intended as a series. But like I said, they're technically interconnected standalones, so you could read them as a standalone if you really only want to read one of them, but please don't do that. And another interconnected standalone series is the Windy City series. This is a 5-star series for me. I love the professional sports romance in this series. So book one, we have Mile High, which is Xander's and Stevie. It's kind of a workplace romance. She's the flight attendant for his professional hockey team's flight crew. He puts on the front to the media that he's like this big playboy, but underneath he's just a big softie. And she is very down to earth. Like, she volunteers at animal shelters. She's not into the fancy clothing, and he's just like super wealthy and bougie, and she's just super down to earth and couldn't be bothered with that lifestyle. So because she's the flight attendant for the team, it's kind of like a forbidden romance. They just have so much chemistry and so much tension. This is definitely very spicy. I think my favorite part of this book was Stevie's honesty with how body image was impacting her and how it impacts how she shows up in a romantic relationship. I felt so seen and so heard, and I just related so strongly to Stevie in this story. I also love Xander's. He's one of my favorite book boyfriends of all time. I just love their romance, and the spice I felt like was really well done in that it furthered their romance. It wasn't just spicy just to be spicy. I don't know. I just love this book. I love this series. 5 stars. Then we have book 2, which is Ryan and Indy. Ryan is actually Stevie's brother from the first book, and he is a professional basketball player. So we have Ryan and Stevie, his sister, her best friend. So it's a best friend's brother romance. Also, forced proximity and grumpy sunshine. If you are a acts of service girl, you need to read this book, because the way that Ryan Shea shows up for Indy and the little things that he does for her will absolutely melt your heart. He's just so thoughtful and goes above and beyond in the little small ways that he shows his love. My heart absolutely melted. Another 5 star for me. Then we have book 3, and that is Caught Up. And here we have Kai and Miller. You meet Kai in the first 2 books. He's a friend of that friend group, and he's a professional baseball player. This one we have a forced proximity nanny romance and also a boss's daughter romance. This, unpopular opinion, majorly, this was my personal least favorite in the series so far, but it was still a 4-star read for me. I think I might have read this book at the wrong time. I think I was just not in the headspace to be reading this book. If I were to reread it for the first time now, probably would be closer to a 5-star. So I freely admit that the lower rating is probably a me problem. But I still thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would recommend the series as a whole. Book 4, I think is called Play Along, is coming out in July, so you can read these 3 and get really excited for when book 4 comes out. And another interconnected standalone series, I have the Chestnut Springs series. I personally have only read book 1 and 2, so that is Flawless and Heartless. Book 1, Flawless, just didn't wow me, and after hearing everyone rave on about the Chestnut Springs series and reading this one and being less than impressed, I was not super motivated to continue the series. But I just recently, almost a year later, picked up book 2, and that is Heartless. Oh my gosh, I fell in love with this book. This is single dad nanny trope and very grumpy sunshine. Also, this whole series is like small town cowboy romance and so much found family. I love the found family. This book has actively made me want to like read all the Chestnut Springs books when I was really on the fence after reading book 1. So this book was so good that not only did I enjoy it, but it redeemed the entire series for me, and now I'm super excited to pick up books 3, 4, and 5. So if you're a small town cowboy-ish romance reader, this is the perfect series for you. Lots of spice, lots of romance, lots of friendship and found family. Just a really fun read so far from my experience. And my favorite series of all time, I recommend picking up the Addicted series. It is a 10-book series, and it is organized oh so nicely on my shelf, so I didn't grab them for you because that just felt like so much work to put them back how they're supposed to be and to bring them all out. So please read the Addicted series, and if you don't love book 1 and 2, please, I'm begging you to continue, because once you get into like the Calloway Sister series crossover books, oh, you will fall in love with them. This is my favorite series of all time. The core 6, we follow 3 couples, so 6 main characters. They feel like family to me. I feel like I know them, I love them, I adore them. Truly, they are my family, and I would do anything in the world for any of them. I just can't say enough great things. My favorite series of all time. The 10th and final book in this series is the epilogue novel, and we get all 6 points of view of all 6 main characters alternating, and it's kind of like super far into their future, like what the rest of their lives kind of looks like. One of my favorite books of all time, like an infinity star read for me. I'm just obsessed. All right, let's keep cruising. We're almost done. I want to talk about some general fiction books. Starting off with Ellen Hilderbrand, the queen of summary books. I would highly recommend reading Golden Girl. This is actually the only Ellen Hilderbrand that I have read so far, but I will talk about it whenever anyone will listen to me. This is about Vivi, I think is the main character's name. Vivian, yeah. She ends up dying in a hit and run accident, and she is met with kind of like this spirit guide. I forget exactly what they call her, and I think her name's Martha. Did I make that up? Yeah, so Martha's basically like her spirit guide after Vivi passes away, and she allows Vivi to watch over her family for the summer and have 3 nudges where she can kind of nudge them in the right direction or like interfere with their lives to kind of keep an eye on them and help them out. With this, there's just so much going on. There's multiple points of view. We have romance, infidelity, addiction. We even have like a mystery going on, friendship. There's just like so much drama and so much scandal, and it's so fun to feel like you're on like the island of Nantucket and reading about the drama of like this super wealthy, well-to-do family. It just like scratches an itch in my brain. I don't know, it just feels so scandalous and so fun. Perfect read for the summertime. Then I would recommend, honestly, any Taylor Jenkins Reid book, but specifically Malibu Rising. This book is mainly about Nina, if I'm remembering correctly. I think Nina is the main character. I don't even know if we get other points of view. I just remember Nina because I loved her. But this is a lot about sibling dynamics. So we have like super famous, I think they're surfers. She's maybe a model. Yeah, talented surfer and supermodel. Look at me remembering things. Super wealthy, super famous family in Malibu. They're hosting like this huge party, and that's basically what this is about. It's just drama and scandal and so many characters and so many different complicated dynamics. I just loved Nina in this book. I felt like she was super relatable, and I felt so seen by this character. Highly would recommend reading this for the summertime, but honestly, you can't go wrong with any Taylor Jenkins read. I feel like Carrie Soto is Back also gives like perfect summer vibes because of like the outdoorsy tennis playing elements, but truly any Taylor Jenkins Reid book, you can't go wrong for the summer. Then an absolute must read for the summertime. If you take one thing from this video, please let it be this book, Mary Jane. This is a coming of age story that is like on my heart to this day. This follows like a teenage girl. Mary Jane is like a teenager, and I did not expect to love this book so much because it felt like it might be too young for me. But oh my gosh, I flew through this and I loved every second of it. So obviously this is about Mary Jane, and she comes from a very like reserved, conservative, religious family, and she gets a job for the summer as a nanny for a family that just couldn't be more polar opposite, honestly. This family that she's nannying for is like super outspoken, super wild, kind of chaotic, and just like they're fun. And while she's nannying for them, the dad is a like really famous psychiatrist, I believe, and he has like a really famous actor and pop star slash rock and roll singer, I think, that are staying with them through the rock star's addiction recovery. Did that make any sense? So while she's nannying for this family, they're housing 2 celebrities basically. But essentially the premise of the story is it's just like an eye-opening coming of age story for Mary Jane, and she's seeing like other walks of life and other points of view, and there's so much found family. I loved every single character in this book so much, and it just like shows humanity and the realness of humanity. I did not expect to love this book so much, and I absolutely adored it. Okay, we're into the last genre now. We are almost done. I am tired of talking, so we're wrapping up here soon. Thrillers and mysteries. Let's jump in. First up, you know I have to recommend the Natural series. I talk about this book all the time on TikTok. If you follow me there, you've definitely heard me rave about this series. This is essentially like a YA Criminal Minds. It's like a YA mystery series. I love the mystery, but even more so, I love the found family and the friendship in this book. The premise basically is we have 5 teenagers slash young adults that have natural abilities, and they're recruited by the FBI to help them work on cold cases. So we have Sloane, who's like super amazing with numbers. We have a mind reader. We have someone that can tell when someone's lying. What else are there? Oh, here. I made myself a little sticky note. We have Michael, who's an emotion reader, Leah, who's really good at detecting lies and deception, Sloan, who is a statistician, so really good with numbers, and Dean and Cassie are natural profilers. So essentially these 5 are recruited by the FBI to work on cold cases. I love this series. I love all 5 main characters, all 5 naturals, and their friendship, and there's even some romance. Like, I just could not get enough of this series. It's the 4.5 book series, 4 books and 1 novella. Highly recommend. I cannot recommend this enough. You will fly through this. Perfect for the summertime. Then I have another series, and that is the Good Girls Guide to Murder series. This is another YA mystery series. I honestly didn't love this one as much as I expected to. I feel like my expectations were maybe a little bit too high going into this series. It was good. It was fast paced, which is why I think it's perfect for the summertime. If you want something just really quick to pick up and kind of binge read, this is definitely a great thriller mystery. I just don't really connect with YA books very often. Like, The Naturals was a really big exception for me. This series just felt a little bit young in my opinion, but still really quick and fast paced if you just want something good and bingeable. Then I have 2 thrillers that are nearly identical in their plot, and I have The Guilt Trip and The Guest List. Basically, this follows 2 friend groups slash parties that go on vacation. Really weird, creepy things start happening. One of them is guilty, and it's kind of like a whodunit type mystery while on vacation. It's that vacation-y element that makes me feel like these are perfect for the summertime, but like I said, these plots are nearly identical, so I don't recommend reading these back to back or near each other. I think pick up one of these books and you'll kind of get the idea of the other one. Or if you love one of them like a lot and you want to read the same thing basically all over again, pick up the other one. Totally your call. And I would recommend The Resort, and this just like screams summertime. Like, have you ever seen a thriller look so summery? I just love it. Let me just read you the opening part of this blurb. It says, "Welcome to paradise. We hope you survive your stay." A thriller that takes place in a paradise setting. Hello, summertime, fast-paced, fun, and perfect summery vibes. All right, you guys, that was a ton of summer book recommendations, but as I'm sitting here, I can still think of more that I want to talk about, but I'm gonna end it there so I don't overwhelm either one of us. I have already given you so many books, so hopefully you can add to your TBR with what I've offered here. But if you happen to want even more ideas, I have a full series of summer slash beachy book recommendations on my TikTok, and I also have a categorized list on my Amazon storefront of like spring and summery sunshiny reads. So you can either check out my TikTok or my Amazon storefront and get more recommendations if you happen to want more. But that is all I have for you. I am tired of talking. My voice is tired. I'm gonna go. Hopefully you got some new summer book recommendations to add to your TBR. Leave a comment down below telling me your top summer book recommendation. That is all for now. My voice is actually tired. I need to go get like a glass of water, but make sure you're subscribed here so you don't miss any future videos, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, book besties.